son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your information for the Overton's 400 from Chicagoland Speedway. Stages this week in the Windy City will be at lap 80, lap 160, and then we'll race the final 107 laps to the finish.
In the last 5 races here in the Windy City, Toyota has dominated with 4 wins, Ford having 1 win. 3 of those 5 winners came from outside the top 10, and 2 of them coming from outside the top 25. In 17 races here, the winner has only gone 1-1 and one time in history, and that was Rowdy back in 2008.
Bonus fun fact, the reason why Chicago is called the Windy City, kids, has nothing to do with the actual wind in Chicago. It has to do with politicians making stuff up. That's how it got its nickname. So, second fun fact there for you this week, a little bit of bonus time. There will be a slight chance of thunderstorms, kids, when we go racing Sunday, July 1st at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC Sports Network. That's right, we've switched networks. We have Dale Jr. in the booth, and if history's any indication, we're going to get even less data from practices for us to go on. Hopefully, NBC changes it this season and Dale Jr. does us right. It's nice to see him in the booth. Liehr, your thoughts on Dale before we get into the picks?
Yeah, man, it'll be good to have him back in the fold. You know, those guys over there at Fox, they do a fantastic job, between Mike Joy and Darrell Waltrip and the legend Jeff Gordon. Those guys do an awesome job, but looking forward to seeing what Dale could do in the booth. They've played this up and played so much hype towards it. He probably is not going to live up to the billing in most people's eyes, but obviously it's just like anything else. A few tries and he'll get it. So, but be awesome to see him and get his perspective on what's going on the track. So.
Yeah, something that we need a lot of perspective on this week is that 4 cars failed post-qualifying inspection and will start from the rear as their qualifying times were disallowed. DraftKings has actually already adjusted the starting positions, so there's no need for us to worry about that. Thank you to DraftKings for being on the ball. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure all the players in the community really appreciate you guys getting on top of that and not making us worry tomorrow before a race if you're going to adjust the starting position.
Oh, I can just see it now, man. Tonight into tomorrow, all these people, direct messaging DraftKings, and you see it all over Twitter about what the hell's going on. So at least they got that nipped in the bud before you have to walk down that road.
The problem is not just that 4 cars failed inspection, it is the 4 cars that failed inspection, or rather 3 of them, and then the best place differential play that you have for value. The first guy that failed inspection for qualifying is Martin Truex Jr. at 10,900. He's only won the last 2 races here at Chicagoland, and he'll start 36th. Behind him is Denny Hamlin, who's 9,300 this week, who's been on fire here as of late with finishes of Chicagoland as 6th, 1st, 6th, and 4th in his last 4 races here. Following him up is Jimmy Johnson at 8,700, who's been sort of a disappointment this season, but he's had a lot of top 10 finishes. Jimmy Johnson's worst finish in the last 7 races here is 13th. That is 16 points of positive place differential. But good luck trying to squeeze him into your salaries this week, as there's a major problem with the amount of money you have and the guys that you want to play. Rounding out the 4 guys that failed to qualify is Chris Buescher, the easy value play of the week at 6,300. He starts dead last, and this car has impressed us week in and week out by overperforming all season long. I expect him to put up some big points this weekend. He hasn't traditionally ran well here at Chicagoland, but his past finishes give you at least a plus 10 place differential from his starting position. And as we'll see when we start talking about value, there's not a lot of positive place differential to look to. Buescher may be high owned, but it's probably going to be the right play. Liehr, your thoughts on the 4 guys that didn't make qualifying?
Well,
they qualified.
Come out from the gate and talk about, what is his ownership percentage going to be for Chris Buescher? So, a guy at that low costing salary point and the position starting, it's just obvious no brainer. But with all 4 of these guys, there is going to be the factor of, oh, I'd love to roster all 4 of them. But, there's salary-wise, you can do that. But you got to have that dominator, so who's going to be your dominator play? But, again, the ownership percentage on all these guys, and to typically look at it from an overall perspective, as history would show us through fantasy NASCAR, you got to take a hard line somewhere. So, I remember when we had where it was, I think, 5 guys that or 6 guys that didn't pass pre-qualifying inspection. And it was one of the same things where everybody's, oh, you got to play all these guys. But you had to take that hard line and not play a couple of them because you got to use the points from, the guys that are starting further up in the field. But Martin Truex Jr., to me, that one is an obviously no-brainer play. I'm going to own 100% of them. Guy just dominates here at Chicago and coming off the win at Sonoma. Congratulations to him, the 78 Furniture Road racing team. I definitely like Jimmy Johnson as well. Interesting fact, though, doing the looking at the stats here, Jimmy Johnson's never won here at Chicago. One of the few tracks that we go to that Jimmy Johnson's never won at. So obviously history tells us that he has done it before, coming from moving to the back of the field and winning the race. But to me, that team has kind of been on an upswing. So that's also another no-brainer play. To me, Denny Hamlin is one of those that is kind of a tweener play for me. He's a guy that obviously is going to have a great starting position, a little bit more expensive in salary at $9,300. But at the same time, obviously a guy that has some really good performances here. But I just like the other 2 guys better. And I've got to spend my money somewhere else. So I got to take that hard line somewhere. So more than likely, it's probably going to end up with the number 11 team and Denny Hamlin.
Dude, I just want to say how great it is to have you back. I'm glad you're feeling well. It's so much nicer to be able to argue back and forth and to sound off my thoughts with somebody else as opposed to just trying to run the show by myself.
I mean, I'm sorry I missed out last week, brother. And by the way, awesome job doing it by yourself. I know that can be a difficult task to do that and to make it happen and not sound like a complete moron. Which you do a fantastic job of not sounding like that. But great information last week, and definitely I got to brag on myself a little bit. I mean, all the recommendations that I had for you guys last week as far as Kurt Busch, Busher, and Jamie McMurray going to the garage, all 3 of those things came to fruition. So it was a good week. Just a few things didn't happen. AJ blew it for me, awesome show, brother, and thanks for doing that. And just one of those things where I couldn't do it and didn't feel well. But I appreciate you, sticking to your guns and getting it done for the community out there.
Oh, well, thanks, brother. Speaking of people getting it done, we got to talk about the other 2 of the big 3 that we haven't talked about. These 2 have been getting it done all season long, and that is Harvick at $11,800. That price tag is just outrageous. He's starting 11th. You've got to love that starting position. You've got to love what Harvick's done this season. I want to roster Harvick on all my lineups because part of me has him becoming the dominator as he was top of the board in 10-lap averages during happy hour practice. I just don't know that we have enough money to get the likes of Harvick and Truex and Jimmy. When I try to get them together, you're left playing some really sketch guys if you put together some of these lineups. So Harvick is an interesting play in my opinion. The one that I think I'm going to fade, and this scares me, is Kyle Rowdy Busch at $11,400. He's starting 16th, which should be really sexy as a place differential play. But that's right at where he was practicing in 10-lap averages. He was 15th in 10-lap averages, and he looked slow in practice and looked slow in qualifying. The team didn't seem concerned, but I don't know, man. Is Kyle's speed being off, is that going to be a factor for you as well? And if so, does that mean that you can grab Rowdy this week at super low ownership?
I think those are all fantastic points, my man. When it comes to Kyle Busch, I mean, you got to think to yourself, man, I'm actually talking about fading the number 18 when he was originally starting from the 18th position. Now obviously he's going to be starting higher than that, starting from the 16th position. But it's one of those things, man. It's hard for me to even say it or even have it come out of my mouth just because, but the speeds were not there today at all. And even when you're talking about when he was 15th fastest in 10 lap averages, that wasn't until he hit his 23rd lap to the 32nd lap for his 10 lap average. So he was already had 2 10 lap runs before he had his best 10 lap average. And that was at the 15th highest position. So that team is lacking some speed this weekend, man. And it's scary that we're going to be talking about Kyle Busch sub, I don't know, wouldn't you say sub 20%?
Yeah, probably.
Starting from that position. I mean, most places we go, that's a automatic no-brainer. I'm playing the guy, I mean, without a doubt. But as you and I both know, it comes down to each track and qualifying in each situation, each weekend. And this weekend, obviously, a little bit different. You and I talked about previously this weekend about the post-qualifying inspection. So, these guys, they really can't mess around with their cars after the qualifying has taken place, basically an impound. So pretty scary stuff for those guys. They're going to have to make a lot of changes during the race to get up to speeds of the other teams. But Kevin Harvick, on the other hand, I definitely love Kevin Harvick this weekend. Guy's got 2 wins here in 17 starts. He's got 9 top 5s. He does have, out of the last recent history, he has had a couple poor finishes with a 42nd finish and a 20th finish in his last 3. But, I mean, this is Kevin Harvick. This is 2018. We're talking about the guy that's been the number 1 guy of the season, and that team has been showing speed, and they showed speed again today. You got to find a way to get him in there. It's just being creative about it.
Yeah, and that's the problem I'm having this weekend is I can make arguments for almost all of these guys, and I can't fit them all in his salary. And that you have to take a stand this week. And I know we say that a lot on this show, but I feel this week you're forced into even a stronger stance than what you would normally be on lineup construction. Without further ado, though, I think it's time to burn some rubber. Liehr, you need to do the honors since you took a week off. And just before you do, I tried last week, and it was so horrific that I had to cut it from editing. I was ashamed at what I watched me try to do the burning rubber thing. It was awful. So please, take us back to doing it right.
Well, out of all the years that I've known you, brother, honestly, it's been few and far between where I've actually had to hear you yell at the top of your lungs and project out into the world. And it'd be interesting. I wish I could have seen it happen because I just like to see how it would have been. But yeah, I'm ready, man. Let's burn some rubber this weekend.
All right,
you ready?
Do it. Burn the
rubber, Windy City style, baby!
You know what? I think that made up for 2 weeks right there. That made up for last week. I think you've got us back on the right track with the burning rubber. All right, who's your driver to burn some rubber this week? We've already covered a lot. Do you have somebody special in mind?
Man, that felt awesome. Yeah, man. Let's talk about this guy named Ryan Blaney. Blaney and the boys in the number 12 garage are coming off of their worst performance to date. I know last week you had him on your lineup. I know you were severely disappointed in that guy in that 12 garage, but that car obviously had some major issues at Sonoma. They're definitely happy to get out of California and head to the Windy City. They are one of the teams that are winless in 2018, which there are a lot of them because obviously we have so many wins between the big 3 of Harvick, Busch, and Truex. So, but in my opinion, that number 12 team has a great opportunity this week to be fantasy dominators. A guy that's going to be a required own driver on your teams this weekend. He starts from the second position next to his former car, the number 21, and sponsor partner, in Paul Menard. But his cost this week is great. I mean, it's unbelievable to get Ryan Blaney, a possible dominator guy that's going to go out there, lead a bunch of laps. It's only $8,300 this week, man. He's such a bargain price play this week. He was the fastest in first practice today. Now, obviously, we know we don't put a ton of weight into that first practice, but this is a little different because instead of these guys all concentrating on qualifying trim and then going and getting into race trim, I mean, we had everything today. This is, I forget the term that they called it within NASCAR, the term that they were using, but we've got everything in a condensed 2-day time period. Practice 1, practice 2, qualifying, and the race tomorrow. So these guys are going to want to get into their equipment right from the get-go. So to me, that shows something, that he was the fastest in first practice today, when we usually don't put that much weight into the first practice. At the same time, in the second practice, he wasn't as fast, but the thing that impressed me the most was he was 9th fastest in 10-lap averages, but his best laps were from the 10th to 19th, where everyone else was mostly first to 10 laps. So that means that they at least got a 10-lap run in, and then were the 9th fastest, where most everybody above him, their fastest laps were 1 through 10. So that means he's got a car that's going to be fast for the duration. So in 2 races under his belt here, he obviously doesn't have a win, but he does have 1 top 5, 1 top 10. He led 8 laps last year when he started from the 22nd position and finished 4th. In my opinion, I think he will take the lead in the first 5 laps of the race. And then when he's out front, he's going to stay out front, in my opinion. He obviously, with his great qualifying position, he has a great pit box. So they're going to put together a great strategy for this weekend. So a lot of positives moving in the direction of the number 12 this weekend. They only have one place to go after last weekend, and that's up. So I look for Blaney and the number 12 team guys to go out there and be a main dominator play this week. Not saying he's going to win, but at the end of the day, he's going to have the points that you need to win your tournaments.
All right, man. Here, I kind of agree with you.
Bring me back down to earth, bro.
All right, I kind of agree with you. I like Blaney as a play. The problem is I don't see Blaney outpointing the place differential guys, and if I have to make a choice, I'm going to play the place differential guys. Let me explain why. Traditionally in this race, we see 2 guys that dominate for 100-plus laps, right? Those traditional statistics are pre this impound race that we've done this week for some reason. I don't know that Blaney is going to go out there and lead 100-plus laps. He doesn't have that in his history here. The most he's ever led here is the 8 he did last year. I don't know, man. Like, I'm worried that if you don't lead that right around that 100-lap mark, you're not going to put up the same points as all the place differential guys. I'm not even sure that the first stage of the race is going to matter much as to who's out leading laps, because in my race vision, I have guys like Larson or Truex or Harvick getting up there and leading laps towards the end of the first stage, if not even sooner. And if that's the case, then you're not going to want to be on a play like Blaney. But if your vision is correct, that Blaney can go out and lead at least 100 laps, if he can do that and stay in the top 5, I think you're right. He's going to be a really great play, and he may end up being lower owned and win you some tournaments. I like where your head's at. The math is just telling me that I would rather play somebody else. One of which I kind of just mentioned, that is Kyle Larson, my pick to burn rubber at 10,400. He grades out here as the 3rd best driver at Chicagoland with finishes of 3rd, 7th, 18th, and 5th in 3 of his last 4 races, giving you positive place differential each 3 of the 4 times. He starts 16th. He was the 3rd fastest in 10-lap averages. Most people, I think, are going to look to spend their money for Truex and Harvick. I think Larson will be the odd man out when you start knowing the salaries. That may make him the play that you want to be on, but it will force you to sacrifice one of those other guys. That's just the reality this week. Now, that sacrifice may allow you to be on an island. I don't know. Liehr, your thoughts?
Yeah, man, it's hard to deny the fact that Kyle Larson, same thing, Kyle Busch, Kyle guys. I mean, both of them starting back there in the late teens, and most times when you have that, you're, no brainer. Okay, I'm playing these guys. Again, salary restrictions when it comes to these 2 this weekend. I mean, guys raced here 4 times. He's got 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s. Best finish being 3rd place. But at the same time, it's not like he's gone out and completely dominated here either at Chicagoland. So I don't know. That team 2 coming off of the victory today in the Xfinity race, a pretty good dominating performance. I don't know. I think that gives him a lot of confidence and a lot of momentum going into tomorrow. We always see it with these Cup guys that if they do the double dip during the weekend, usually if the guy wins on Saturday, it gives him, a good, base and a good vibe, and as far as just a whole bunch of confidence going into the day afterwards and into the cup race. So, it's not one of those situations where he's starting on the pole and you're like, okay, yeah, this guy's going to go out. He's going to lead, 150 laps. But he's definitely, in my mind, he's going to be a great place differential play. And yes, he does have the ability to get up front and lead a bunch of laps. I just think when it comes to this situation, I like Larson. I will definitely play some Larson. But I'm probably going to have more exposure on somebody more like Harvick. Now, I know there's a big price difference there, but I'm going to have to make that up somewhere else down here. But, yeah, I will have some exposures on Larson for the just in case, obviously. But somebody specifically I'm not going out and targeting on every single team that I have. But it is a guy that I'm going to have probably 30 to 40% ownership on.
With the prices being where they're at and who we really want to and kind of have to roster this week, we need to save some money. Who's the guy you're looking to save some money on this week, buddy?
I'm going to go to one of the seasoned veterans that we've got here on the circuit and go with number 31 and Ryan Newman. That team's had a pretty solid 2018 season. We arrive at one of his better tracks that they race on the circuits. But this week he starts from the 17th position after that post-qualifying inspection. His cost this week is $7,300. He's got 16 starts here with one win eons ago, back in 2003, when he started out with Penske Racing. And what number was he in when he raced that one? Number 12, I think it is. Yeah, that's right, number 12. He has an average start of 10.9 with an average finish of 14.7. Again, 4 top 5s, 9 top 10s. So he's got a 56% average on top 10s here when he races here. At least 56% of the time he's finished in the top 10. This week his salary, with salaries being tight, and Newman may be one of those drivers who gets overlooked left based on his salary factor. But I think it is a guy that you need to be cognizant of. A guy that definitely has a chance to get a top 10 here. And somebody that I think, like I said, based on salaries where a lot of people are probably going to be punting a lot down here because they're taking a lot of the top-end guys. So stud-dud kind of strategy there. I think Newman's one of the guys that gets overlooked but has a great opportunity to get a top 10.
Yeah, to be honest, Newman's the guy I was overlooking. It's in that group, dude. I just don't have enough money to be able to play those guys. If I'm trying to play the place differential guys and the guys I have to be potential dominators, it just doesn't work out. Unfortunately, that means I'm leaving guys like Newman off my lineup. But if I strategically went after a Newman play, I would totally buy your analysis here. I think it's really smart and rather savvy, to be honest. I'm to be honest, a fan of playing Newman and trying to maneuver the salary. I'm just not sure I'm a fan of what that does to my lineup by not allowing me to make those place differential guys that I really want to play. So I think that my kind of confusion on your play is indicative of my confusion on value as a whole. I was going to advocate guys rolling Corey LaJoie this week, even though we know how risky and terrible that car traditionally is. But when he lost the 4 of his possible place differentials, he became even more of a risk than usual. And to be honest, when I'm going through the value guys, all of them are basically severely affected and hampered by these 4 place differential positions. They were pretty much qualifying right on the edge of where you wanted them to begin with. And then when you bumped all of them 4, they're losing out on that place differential. And those are places that they have to hold in order to maintain the lowest possible point scoring for those tier drivers. And it just gets scary. The math says that most of them are going to drift towards their 6-point finishes, which are devastating to you fantasy-wise, as opposed to the 38 to 48-point range, which is what you really need out of these value plays. Now, I would love to recommend a guy that would get you that 38 to 48, but I'm not seeing it other than the guy that we already talked about. Liehr, are you, other than reaching up and spending too much money for a guy that I can't afford on my lineup in Newman, which I love your pick, I don't have anybody to recommend. I'm sorry. I don't want to make anything up or feed you guys nonsense. I'm just saying you're going to have to take a stand this week. I want you guys to know that you took the stand and that it was your choice because I've got nothing. Liehr?
The typical Poppa comes back out where he can't stick with one gosh darn pick. He's got to pick like something all the way out here. No, but I love you for it, man. But if any indication on anything, we're talking about Kyle Weatherman starting from the 30th position for Star.com Racing.
Not just in the primary car.
Indication of the weekend. Welcome to the Windy City, all right?
Yeah, it's Star.com car 2. Like, it's not even their primary car. They have issues getting their primary car around the track, and now we're, like, really legitimately contemplating playing the second of their cars. Like,
well, the best part is they're starting 1-2. Weatherman starting from 30th. Landon Castle's 31st, so there you go. Yeah, I mean, man, it's hard because you're also talking about Ross Chastain starting from the 27th position.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I would still say that, in my opinion, you know, DiBarito from the 28th position is still a good start with his salary this week. But, yeah, after that, I mean, Gray Galding, no. Kyle Weatherman, no. Landon Castle, no. LaJoy, 32nd. Yeah, if he was still, like you said, starting from the 36th or 37th position.
Right.
Yeah, because there's probably going to be a little bit of carnage this weekend. Give me a couple of those automatic bump ups there because people don't finish the race, and I will take it.
But you wipe out that 4 and everything.
Then it's out the window.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's definitely tough goings this weekend between David Reagan starting 23rd, Bubba Wallace coming off of his. By the way, dude, real quick, a side note. We didn't even talk about your side of it last week when we were talking about who my picks were going to be. But I was so hoping I wanted to take Bubba Wallace going to the garage. I had to go with the Jamie McMurray play. But I was so happy when I listened to the show and you're like, and I'm sending Bubba Wallace to the garage, even though he's starting from the 35th position. I'm like, yes, because he was so terrible last weekend. It was so god awful. I felt so bad for him last weekend because I mean he's just sitting there trying to just go around the track and can't even do that. But with him starting from the 22nd position, and just from there, it just makes it tough goings this weekend. So, in my opinion, that's kind of why I rolled the Ryan Newman play.
Huh?
Not only that, too, I forgot to mention that he was 13th in happy hour as far as the 10-lap averages. So, but it's just a guy that's on that cusp of being a below, salary average kind of guy, but also, too, that's a seasoned veteran and can still have the ability to get the points and get higher. So, but yeah, it is tough going this weekend as far as finding some value plays this week.
Yeah, and dude, I prefer to give people real information, not just make stuff up. And I don't have any for those guys. The models all show that they're not going to score the right amount of points. That's why I totally respect that you went up to Newman. The problem is I'm not going to be able to do that on my lineup build, so I have no idea how I'm going to round out my lineups at this point in time. It is like playing at the craps table, baby. Just you got to shoot the dice and pray for the best.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, kind of like almost like we're going to a Daytona or Talladega race, a restrictor plate race, and another guy in that kind of same salary range that you may have the opportunity to get, but he's starting a little bit higher. This is one of those guys that if he can stay clean and stay out of the stuff, he can get a top 10 here, and that's Daniel Suarez at $7,500. So he's only got one start here, but it was a good for him. So I mean, it's a guy that in top equipment, Joe Gibbs Racing equipment, and like we talked about, Toyota's won 4 out of the last 5 races here. It'd be crazy if he gets the win this weekend, which I don't think that'll happen, but. Definitely a guy you got to be cognizant of that could, wind up with the top 10, getting him at a $7,500 price point. So the little bit of place differential with the position could make it happen for you.
Yeah, it's just an extremely risky play based on his starting position. So
yeah,
wow, that's where you're left this week. It's a little crazy. All right, perhaps we'll have a little bit of better clarity on who not to pick after we do our going to the garage segment. Remember, guys, this is where we talk a little bit of trash on drivers. Sometimes it's on NASCAR. Sometimes it's on DraftKings. We'll see. Liehr, who are you talking trash on this week and sending to the garage?
Well, before we get going here, I want to take you guys back in time a little bit to the time, I don't know, maybe was it 3 weeks ago, a month ago? Time goes by so darn fast, but Poppa talked about putting DraftKings going to the garage because they didn't have Cole Custer on the roster that weekend. Well, this weekend, Cole Custer is not racing, and he is eligible for your lineups this week. But be cognizant of the fact that Cole Custer will not be racing in Sunday's Cup race. So make sure to check your lineups, okay, kids? All right. I'm going to be sending one of the guys that's actually had a pretty good season so far, a guy that I'm really impressed with. Got an upgrade in equipment this past season over some equipment that he was in for quite some time. But I'm going to be going with Double A and Eric Amarola and the guys in the number 10 garage. Like I said, they've had a pretty amazing 2018 season, and Amarola has been basically a really good breath of fresh air at Stewart-Haas Racing in that number 10 car. This week, he had a great qualifying run, and we'll be starting from the 6th position after, obviously, Hamlin was one of the guys that post-qualified failed inspection. So he was starting from that 5th position. For fantasy purposes this week, Almirola is a salary killer, in my opinion, at $8,900, which basically prices him out of my lineups unless you are specifically going out and targeting Amarola for your lineups this weekend. His other problem is that he's historically been pretty horrible here. In 6 starts, he's got 0 wins, 0 top 5s, 1 top 10 with an average start of 18th with an average finish of 22.8. Now, granted, I know one of the things before I even get off and let Poppa talk about this, he's going to say, I know he was in much better equipment now, based on his salary than he was back historically when he made all of those races and starts with Richard Petty. But overall data here, makes him, with that, the overall data and his salary, $8,900 for him this week, just makes him an absolute non-play in my book. Feel free to go out there, kids, and throw a couple of Amarolas out there just for tournament's sake, if you want to, for be on an island just in case. But, the percentages and the maths are going to tell you, you go spend your money somewhere else.
All right. I get where your heart's at here. My question is your head in the right place? Because as good as Amarola and Boyer have been, don't they have just as much of an opportunity to be the dominator this week as you're picking Blaney? Just a legitimate question.
Boyer, yes. Amarola, no, because Amarola hasn't shown it this year.
Okay. That's fair enough.
He hasn't been a guy that has gone up and led tons of laps and won races. And granted, I know Blaney hasn't won any races either, but he has, at points this season, been up at the top and leading laps. Amarola has not.
No.
He has just very few small times, like maybe less than 10 laps, something like that. But Amarola is just not on that same. He's right. He's kind of right there, but he's not on that same platform as like a Boyer or a Blaney, in my opinion.
No, fair enough. My question is if I'm looking for unique guys that are going to be low owned that have a possibility to dominate, I still want to keep Almirola in that grouping, just because at some point in time he's going to bust out. And like you said, with where his salary's at this week, hardly anyone's going to own him. So
right.
If you have a race vision or want to try to get cute with a Stewart-Haas stack, which is going to really limit you, and try to do that with some of the place differential, whatever you can squeeze in there, that might be an interesting strategy. I don't know that I'm going to do it, but I don't know that I can send any of these Stewart-Haas cars to the garage as good as they've been running this season, except maybe Kurt Busch, just because he likes to screw that up every once in a while.
Yeah, and to be 100% honest with you, he was one of the other guys I was actually contemplating about going to the garage with, too.
Mm-hmm.
Starting from that 4th position. But one thing that, I just don't know if he has the ability to get up there and lead laps here at Chicago. But as far as Chicago is concerned, probably not a lot of people know this, but Chicago is basically the Busch brothers' second home. That's where their parents are from. So they are huge Cubs fans. But when it comes to Chicagoland Speedway, they're just, one of the types of drivers that they don't have an absolute ton of success here. I mean, if you were going to play, any of the two Busch brothers, obviously I would much rather play Rowdy Busch this weekend than Kurt Busch. And this is actually one of Kurt Busch's, one of his not so good tracks. I mean, his average finish here is 15.38. He's only got one win here in 16 races, and only 3 top 5s. So really, it's going to basically dictate that it's just statistically, and the data showed that Amarola was a worse player. So I had to go with Amarola, but Kurt Busch is kind of right there for me too. I just don't think he's going to be one of the guys that gets up there and dominates.
All right, kids. My going to the garage pick is a fairly easy one, but I wanted to pick it because a lot of people are fawning over him qualifying first, and I don't understand the fawning. I get that this is exactly what NASCAR wanted and why we had the impound race. They wanted to see somebody else up at the top of the boards qualify number 1 that wasn't named Harvick, Rowdy Busch, or Martin Truex Jr., and so we get Paul Menard winning the pole. But, guys, he has 3 top 5s in the last 2+ seasons, like on all tracks. 2 of those top 5s are at Daytona. Like, there is about a 0% chance that Menard will ever equal what you need him to as a pole sitter. In my opinion, this is the easiest fade of a pole sitter that I can remember in NASCAR DFS. Do you remember another pole sitter that is this easy of a fade, in your opinion, Liehr? I want no part of it. I realize he was practicing top 10 and 10 lap averages, but that's nowhere near good enough to stay on the pole, to stay in the lead and rack up those points. He's going to go backwards. It's what he does here. I want no piece, man. I will have 0.
I mean, yeah, there's just no way you can play any Paul Menard, but congratulations to Paul Menard and the Wood brothers. I mean, love the Wood brothers, guys. I don't know. There was just something magical about Blaney and the Wood brothers. I just love that car. But Paul Menard, nice guy, but congratulations to him too. First pole in over a decade for that man.
Right.
So congratulations to him and NASCAR too. I mean, a little bit of a bravo to you as well for, switching things up a little bit. I mean, you do make it a little bit more difficult on us to figure out what's actually going on. But in the end, they're looking to spice things up a little bit, get a little blood pumping into the sport, something a little different. So I like it, and congratulations to the Wood brothers. Awesome for them. But, yeah, no way I can play the number 2 one this weekend. Sorry.
I mean,
I will not be going to Menards tomorrow.
The good news is if you wanted to play him, you may have the lowest ownership percentage ever for a pole sitter. So there's that. But like I said, I think it's going to light your lineup on fire if you do.
Yeah,
All right.
There's just no way.
All right, Liehr. I think that successfully wraps up most of our picks. Why don't you go ahead and recap for us? As guys, we have all of the standings updated for our Rubbin' His Racing Season-Long Championship League. It's all up. I've even got a comprehensive standings done. That is also up for us at this point of the season. Everything's included up to this race. So, Liehr, thank you for getting that tabulation done. Tell us about last week's contest.
So we got to go back to last week's show real quick because Poppa forgot to mention it. But congratulations to our buddy Joe Schmidt in Wiscoins 25 for the victory at Michigan. Congratulations to you, buddy. Thanks for playing, always being part of the community. So congratulations to you, sir. But as far as last week, man, awesome. Last week, we had a 3-way tie between SS Jackson, KUJG 999, and Eddie 7288. We had Clint Boyer with a 61, Chris Buescher with a 45.5, which we recommended, along with Clint Boyer. Kurt Busch with a 55.75, which we also recommended. Matt DiBenedetto with a 40, awesome play there. Denny Hamlin with a 49, and Kevin Harvick with a 75.75 for a grand total of 327. So congratulations to you boys, and enjoy your victory there. And it's been awesome, man. It's been fun.
The fun continues this week. Remember to get your lineup in, and the winner of the season-long contest will get an autographed diecast that Liehr and I will send out to that winner. Hopefully it's me and Liehr's having to send me an autographed diecast. That would be awesome.
Yeah, you're in the running, but
but we're all getting smoked right now.
Diecast or not.
We're all getting smoked right now, though.
Oh yeah. I got to get on the ball for the rest of the season.
You have been having a problem choosing your best lineup and putting it in that contest. But that's.
I mean, I have had a lot going on this season, so but full steam ahead. I'm going to be getting a lot of wins here coming up.
There you go.
A lot of top 10s, a lot of top 5s.
I like the attitude. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, remember to like, share, subscribe. Have a safe and wonderful 4th of July weekend, holiday. Guys, have a great one. Let's win some money this week. Liehr?
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, and appreciate you guys watching the show. Have fun this weekend. Should be a great race in Chicago. And have a great weekend. Happy 4th of July. Be safe out there. And the Bears, the Bears, the Bears, the Bears, the Bears.
The Bears, the Bears, the Bears, the Bears.
Ditka.
Polish sausage. Ditka. Polish sausage. Later, y'all. Have a good one.
See you. Have a good one.